The galaxy was full of voices, but one voice rose above them all, a warning carried from world to world. It was spoken in hushed tones by traitors, whispered in fear by diplomats, and repeated in the dark corridors of forgotten stations. That voice said one thing: stay away from Earth. At first, the warning sounded like a myth. Many empires had heard similar tales about hidden planets, cursed worlds, and forgotten races. But the aliens who spoke of Earth did not speak with excitement. They spoke with terror. Their eyes darkened, their voices lowered, and they always ended their stories the same way: do not go near them. Among the great galactic empire, this warning spread like smoke. And in the shining palace of the emperor, advisors brought these stories before the throne. The emperor laughed. He was a ruler of countless systems, commander of fleets so large that their shadows blotted out suns. To him, Earth was nothing, a small, primitive world, barely a footnote in the endless records of stars. Still, one envoy came before the court, an old alien from a race long scarred by battle. His body carried wounds of forgotten wars, and his eyes burned with memory. He fell to his knees before the emperor's throne. His voice shook as he begged, "Do not touch Earth. Do not send your fleets there. We have seen what they can do. Humanity is not what they appear. They are something else, something the galaxy was never meant to awaken." The emperor leaned back in his golden seat, his smile full of arrogance. Around him the court roared with laughter. Commanders mocked, the old alien. Ministers sneered. How could a world so small threaten the might of the empire? The emperor raised his hand, silencing the chamber. He looked down at the envoy with cold amusement. "Old fool," he said. "You tell ghost stories to frighten children. Do you think the empire fears shadows? Earth will kneel as all others have knelt." But still the envoy spoke. His words were broken, desperate, and filled with dread. He told of fleets that had vanished, of soldiers who never returned, of ships that burned in the silence of space. He told of humans, fragile in body yet unbreakable in spirit. He spoke of battles where no mercy was given, and where even the strongest species fell. "They are a Deathworld people," he whispered. "Everything on their world fought to kill them, and so they became killers to survive. Their history is made of wars. Their hearts are made of iron. Do not test them. Do not go near them." The court grew restless. Some shifted uneasily in their seats, but the emperor rose with a smile, his cape trailing like fire. "We are the empire. We do not fear savages from a forgotten world. We conquer. We rule. We decide." The warning was cast aside. Guards dragged the alien envoy from the hall. His final words echoed through the chamber like a curse. "Remember me when your fleets burn. Remember me when your empire screams." Outside, in the vast cold of space, the message continued to spread. Traders still whispered it in cantinas. Pilots repeated it as they looked into the void. Some listened and turned their ships away from Earth. But others, the arrogant, the curious, the foolish, always leaned closer, wondering if the stories were real. The empire was not curious. The empire was hungry, and hunger made them deaf. Yet, in the shadows of their arrogance, some within the empire did wonder. In the war rooms of the high command, a few voices whispered questions. Why would so many species repeat the same warning? Why did even ancient powers old as the stars avoid Earth's path? And why did fear, not wonder, stain every voice that spoke of humans? But these questions were silenced by pride. Pride was the lifeblood of the empire, and pride told them no race, no world, no people could resist their rule. Still, the galaxy waited. Silent eyes watched from dark systems. Old powers stirred in forgotten ruins. And somewhere, beyond the edge of charts, Earth remained quiet, too quiet. Humanity did not speak, humanity did not warn. They simply waited, watching as if daring the galaxy to make the first move. In that silence, the seeds of fear grew. The aliens who had begged, who had pleaded, could only shake their heads. They had tried to stop the storm. They had tried to protect the empire from itself. but they knew what would come. Because once Earth was provoked, once humanity rose to defend itself, the galaxy would never be the same again. And so the warning lingered, heavy like smoke before fire. Stay away from Earth. But the Empire was already laughing, and soon the laughter would turn to screams. The warning had been spoken, but it was forgotten as quickly as it was given. The Galactic Empire was too vast, too powerful, and too proud to take the words of one trembling alien seriously. In the shining capital of the Empire, the halls of command echoed with laughter. Advisors ridiculed the very idea that a single small world could stand against them. Generals boasted that conquering Earth would not even require the full force of their fleets. A handful of warships, they claimed, would be enough to bend humanity to the Emperor's will. The Emperor himself sat upon his throne, wrapped in gold and glory, while his commanders painted pictures of quick victory. They described Earth as a planet of dirt and oceans inhabited by a race barely capable of spaceflight, primitive, reckless, and unworthy of attention. Yet, because other species had been whispering about them, the Emperor grew curious. Conquest would not only silence those whispers, it would remind the galaxy of the Empire's unstoppable power. Orders were sent. A grand fleet was assembled, not out of caution, but out of pride. Thousands of warships prepared for departure, their hulls gleaming with Imperial banners. From orbiting stations, crowds of citizens cheered as the mighty engines roared. Soldiers marched in perfect lines, their armor shining under alien suns. The invasion of Earth had begun, not because it was necessary, but because the Empire could not tolerate even the smallest hint of defiance. Still, not all were blind to danger. In quiet corners of the high command, a few whispered doubts. They remembered the envoy's warning. They had heard of strange disappearances, patrol ships vanishing near the Sol system, scouts failing to return, small fleets erased without explanation. Reports of these incidents were dismissed as accidents or lies, but the unease remained. Yet no one dared speak openly. In the Empire, doubt was weakness, and weakness was punished. The pride of the Empire was a living thing. It pushed forward the soldiers, it filled the hearts of citizens with fire, and it blinded the generals to fear. In their arrogance, they renamed the coming battle not as an invasion, but as a correction. To them, Earth was simply a mistake, waiting to be corrected, a world that had somehow escaped their control for too long. When the fleet was finally ready, the Emperor gave his speech to the galaxy. His voice, carried across millions of systems, was full of confidence and arrogance. The galaxy is ruled by order, and that order is the Empire. Earth is a forgotten world, but it dares to resist through whispers and shadows. We will silence those whispers. We will show that no corner of the stars can stand against us. The speech was met with thunderous applause. Billions celebrated, believing victory was already theirs. In the eyes of the people, the Empire could never lose. Their fleets were too vast, their armies too disciplined, their emperor too mighty. But hidden behind the cheering voices, unease grew stronger among the older races of the galaxy. The ones who had lived long enough to remember. They shook their heads, muttering in silence. They do not understand what they are waking. The fleet launched, wave after wave of colossal ships tearing through hyperspace lanes toward the Sol system. From spaceports across the Empire, families waved goodbye to sons and daughters, believing they were marching to easy glory. Generals boasted that within weeks Earth would be nothing more than another jewel in the crown of the Empire. Yet, in the cold depths of space, silence waited. On distant outposts, alien ambassadors watched the Imperial fleets depart. Some wept, some turned their eyes away. They had begged the Empire to listen, but their pleas had fallen on deaf ears. Now all they could do was wait for the storm that would follow. Inside the command decks of the flagship, the generals laughed as they studied maps of the Sol system. Earth, small and fragile, looked defenseless compared to the might of the fleet. One commander mocked, "They live on a Deathworld, yes, but what is a Deathworld to us? We bring the fire of stars. Let them hide in their oceans and forests. Our weapons will erase them in a single night." But even as the generals mocked, A single transmission from a spy hidden near Saul appeared on their screens. It was short, crackling with static, the voice broken and full of fear. "They know they are watching us." Then silence. The commanders laughed it off. To them it was only a scout frightened by shadows. But if they had listened closely, they might have heard the truth trembling in those words. Humanity was not ignorant of the Empire's approach. Humanity was waiting. The pride of the Empire was unstoppable. They were deaf to warnings, blind to fear, and drunk on their own power. Their ships crossed the void with banners flying high, with songs of victory already echoing in their halls. But in the dark, beneath the quiet stars, Earth prepared to answer, and the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. The Imperial fleet cut through hyperspace like a blade of fire. Thousands of warships moved as one, their engines glowing like captured suns. They were a wall of steel and arrogance, unstoppable in appearance, unbreakable in pride. From the bridge of the flagship, the High Admiral looked out at the endless stream of ships. His lips curled into a smile. "This is power," he thought. "This is destiny." The fleet reached the edges of the Sol system. The stars seemed quiet here, the black void strangely heavier than usual. Earth's sun glowed in the distance, pale compared to the massive gas giants that circled nearby. To the commanders, this world looked small, weak, and exposed. Scanners detected human satellites, space stations, and a few ships, but none of it looked dangerous. Compared to the war machines of the Empire, Earth appeared defenseless. The High Admiral's voice rang out across the fleet's channels. "Forward, take position. Let the galaxy see that Earth has no protection against us." The ships advanced, spreading into attack formations. They cut across the solar system with ease, brushing aside automated defenses like insects. A handful of human satellites burned in bright flashes, destroyed instantly. The commanders laughed, mocking the fear that had filled the council chambers weeks before. "These are the monsters we were warned about. Toys, nothing more." But then, silence fell. From Earth itself, no resistance came. No fleets rose to challenge them. No armies appeared in orbit. Instead, a single transmission reached the Empire's fleet. It was audio only, the signal clear and sharp, cutting through the static of space like a knife. A human voice spoke, calm, cold, without fear. "You should have listened." The words echoed across the fleet, chilling even the most hardened officers. For a moment there was confusion. Was this a threat? A bluff? But before the High Admiral could respond, sensors began to scream. Something was moving near Jupiter. The fleet's scanners strained to focus. At first they saw only shadows, dark shapes rising from the planet's orbit. Then the shadows moved. Dozens, hundreds, thousands. Warships, massive and angular, emerging like predators from the deep. They were unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. Their hulls were dark and sharp, almost predatory in design. Blue light ran along their sides like veins of fire. Their engines burned with quiet fury. The humans had been waiting. The High Admiral's smile vanished. His voice cut through the channels, sharp and commanding. "Form defense lines, ready weapons." But even as the Empire prepared, more ships appeared. From behind the moon, from the asteroid belt, from hidden bases across the system. Earth's fleets revealed themselves in silence, surrounding the invaders with patient precision. The first shot was fired by the Empire. A massive blast of plasma struck one of Earth's ships head-on. The explosion lit the void for a moment, yet when the fire cleared, the human warship was still there. Its hull glowed, scarred but unbroken. Then slowly, it turned its cannons toward the Empire. The human reply was devastating. Beams of energy, sharp as lightning, tore through the first line of Imperial ships. In seconds, whole squadrons were burning. The screams of commanders filled the comm channels, replaced quickly by static as their ships were annihilated. Panic spread, but the humans did not rush. They advanced like hunters, precise and cold. From the flagship, the High Admiral struggled to keep order. "Hold the line. They cannot match our numbers." But deep inside, he felt the truth. Numbers meant nothing. The warnings had been real. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not primitive. They were predators forged on a Deathworld, sharpened by endless wars, and now armed with weapons the galaxy had never seen. On Earth's surface, billions watched their skies. They had always known this day would come. Humanity had not forgotten its history of conquest and survival. They knew the galaxy would challenge them one day. That was why they had built their fleets in silence, hidden their weapons, and waited. Now their enemies had arrived and humanity would answer in full. The battle raged across the void. Imperial fleets tried to push forward, but every maneuver was met with devastating counters. Ships disappeared in flashes of fire. Whole wings were erased by a single coordinated strike. The High Admiral's pride turned to rage, then to fear, as his flagship itself shook under the impact of Earth's weapons. And then, the humans spoke again. This time, the transmission was seen, not just heard. A figure appeared on screens across the fleet. A human commander dressed in dark uniform, his expression calm and unshaken. His eyes were like stone. "You were warned," he said. "You mocked us. You believed we were weak. Now you will learn." The message ended. The humans attacked again, harder, faster, without mercy. The Empire had come expecting a victory to display before the galaxy. Instead, they found themselves trapped in humanity's jaws. The first contact was not peace. It was not diplomacy. It was judgment. And for the first time in centuries, the Empire realized what true fear felt like. The first clash had stunned the Empire, but what followed broke them. The void itself seemed to roar as Earth's warships advanced. They moved like predators circling prey, silent, disciplined, and merciless. Every volley of fire from the humans was measured, precise. Every strike tore through Imperial shields, ripping battleships apart as if their armor were nothing but paper. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's fleets fought not for glory, but for survival. Admirals barked frantic orders, commanders screamed over broken channels, and soldiers clung to their posts as the human onslaught continued. Yet no matter how many shots they fired, no matter how many desperate maneuvers they attempted, the humans always seemed one step ahead, anticipating every move, exploiting every weakness. The High Admiral stood on the command deck of the flagship, his hands gripping the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. His voice shook with anger as he shouted, "Push forward, break their line, overwhelm them." But the words were empty. The humans were not a line to be broken. They were everywhere. Their ships struck with surgical precision, then vanished into the black, only to reappear in another sector, cutting down more Imperial squadrons. It was not chaos. It was not chance. It was strategy, perfected and merciless. For generations, the Empire had believed itself unmatched. They had grown fat on victory, arrogant in conquest. But here, against Earth, their confidence shattered. They had expected farmers with spears. Instead, they faced wolves with teeth sharper than anything the galaxy had seen. The human fleets pressed closer. On every Imperial screen, warnings blazed red: shield failures, hull breaches, entire wings gone silent. Ships that had served for centuries, symbols of power and fear, were reduced to burning wrecks drifting lifeless through the void. And still, the humans did not speak. They did not boast. They did not celebrate. They simply destroyed. On Earth itself, the skies glowed with streaks of fire as the battle unfolded above. Billions watched, holding their breath, but their faces carried no fear. They had been preparing for this day for generations. They knew the galaxy would come for them eventually, and they had sworn that when it did, Earth would never bow. The human commander's voice returned once more across the Imperial channels. Calm, cold, final. "You came here by choice. You ignored the warnings. Now you will pay the price." Then the full wrath of Earth was unleashed. Hidden weapons ignited across the system. From the asteroid belt, massive cannons fired beams that split Imperial cruisers in half. From secret bases on the moons of Jupiter, missiles streaked through the dark, ripping through the core of battleships. From deep orbit around Earth, colossal, carriers released swarms of strike craft, small, fast, deadly machines that cut apart the Empire's formations like blades through cloth. The Empire's fleet, once a wall of power, began to collapse. Their formations broke, their unity shattered. Ships collided as they tried to flee. Others detonated, their reactors overwhelmed by human fire. Screams filled the comm channels before being silenced in bursts of static. The pride of the Empire was burning, piece by piece, under the relentless storm of Earth's fury. The High Admiral fell silent as his flagship shuddered from another direct hit. Around him, officers shouted in panic, their faces pale, their voices filled with fear. His empire had never known defeat. And yet here in the cold black near a small blue planet, defeat was all they could see. "Why?" he whispered to himself, his voice trembling. "How can this be? They are only humans." But deep inside, he already knew the answer. They were not only humans. They were survivors of a Deathworld, a species that had fought tooth and nail against nature itself, just to live. Every storm, every predator, every war had forged them into something harder than steel. And now, with their eyes turned outward to the stars, they fought with that same unbreakable will. The Empire had thought power came from numbers, from wealth, from centuries of conquest. But the humans had shown another kind of power, the power to endure, to adapt, to strike with precision, and without fear. That power was destroying the mightiest fleet the galaxy had ever known. The wrath of Earth was not wild rage. It was cold, calculated, and absolute. By the battle's third hour, half the Imperial fleet was gone. By the fourth, the survivors were scattered, broken, and leaderless. The once proud banners of the Empire now floated among the wreckage, meaningless in the silence of space. And still humanity pressed forward. No hesitation, no mercy. From distant worlds, alien races watched the battle unfold through stolen transmissions and hidden sensors. They saw the mighty Empire humbled, its fleets crushed, its arrogance turned to ash. For centuries, those races had whispered warnings about Earth. Now they no longer whispered. They knew. Humanity had revealed itself, and the galaxy would never forget what it saw. For the Empire, there was no glory left. There was only survival. And survival meant retreat. But Earth was not finished. The battle that was meant to bring glory had become a nightmare. Where once the Imperial fleet had moved in perfect order, now only chaos remained. Ships drifted without command, some burning, some silent, and others trying desperately to escape the storm that surrounded them. The pride of the Empire, their greatest fleet, was collapsing before the eyes of the galaxy. The High Admiral stood frozen on the flagship bridge. His face was pale, his voice gone. Around him, officers shouted and argued, their once disciplined order replaced with panic. "We must retreat," one cried. "Hold the line," shouted another. But no one truly believed the line existed anymore. Humanity had shattered it, broken it, and ground it to dust. Every new message that arrived was worse than the last. Sector 7 destroyed. Carrier group annihilated. Flank in ruins, no survivors. The comm channels were filled with static and screams, voices cut short as ships exploded in the void. The High Admiral gripped the command rail, his hands shaking. His mind replayed the old envoy's words. "Remember me when your fleets burn." The warning had not been a story, it had been prophecy. And now it was unfolding, second by second, in front of him. He whispered to himself, broken and lost. "This cannot be real. We are the Empire. We cannot lose." But reality no longer cared for the Empire's pride. Across the system, Imperial soldiers begged for orders, for rescue, for hope. None came. Instead, humanity hunted them down with cold precision. Strike craft pursued fleeing destroyers. Cannons fired without pause, tearing holes through retreating wings. Even those who tried to surrender found no mercy. Earth's fleets gave no answer but fire. The Emperor's dream of triumph was turning into shame, Across the Empire's worlds, citizens who had cheered for Conquest now watched the silence of their feeds. First came confusion, then fear. Families who had sent sons and daughters to war began to realize the truth. There would be no easy victory, and there might be no return. On neutral worlds, alien diplomats exchanged dark glances. Some whispered with satisfaction. After centuries of being crushed under imperial rule, they were seeing vengeance delivered at last. Others trembled, realizing the galaxy now had a new apex predator. Humanity had shown its face, and it was terrifying. On the flagship, the High Admiral finally gave the order no one thought he would ever speak. His voice cracked as he shouted, "Retreat! All ships retreat! Save what remains!" But even retreat was a lie. Humanity did not allow escape so easily. Their fleets blocked every hyperspace lane, every exit path. They had prepared for this battle as though they had always known it would come. And perhaps in their hearts they had. Imperial ships tried to break through, but each attempt ended in fire. The retreat became a slaughter, the proud banners of the Empire reduced to burning wreckage scattered across the stars. The High Admiral's flagship shook violently as another blast tore through its shields. Sparks rained from the ceiling, consoles exploded, officers screamed in pain. The Admiral fell to his knees, his pride gone, his will broken. He realized the truth too late. The Empire had not just underestimated Earth, they had insulted it. And humanity never forgave insult. In his last desperate moment, he sent a transmission back to the Emperor. His voice was filled not with pride, but with terror. "Forgive me. We did not understand. They are not what we thought." "They are." The message ended in static as the flagship was consumed by fire. For the Empire, arrogance had been everything. It was their foundation, their shield, their weapon. But arrogance had turned to blindness, and blindness had led them to ruin. In the silence after the battle, wreckage floated across the Sol system. Burning hulls drifted like tombstones, each one a monument to the Empire's failure. Of the thousands of warships sent to conquer Earth, only a handful survived, and those survivors carried no glory. They carried scars, shame, and the memory of a nightmare they could never forget. The survivors limped back into hyperspace, broken and afraid. They did not look back, because behind them lay the truth they could not face. Humanity had destroyed them utterly and without mercy, and across the galaxy the story spread faster than light. The Empire had laughed at the warnings. The Empire had believed itself untouchable. But Earth had shown them the cost of arrogance. No one laughed anymore. In council chambers, alien leaders whispered in disbelief. Could this truly be the same species that had been dismissed as weak? Could the fragile-looking humans really be the monsters who had crushed the mightiest fleet in the stars? The answer was clear, and it filled the galaxy with both relief and terror. Relief, because the Empire had finally been humbled. Terror, because humanity had proven that the warnings were true. They were Deathworlders, apex predators, and now the galaxy had seen what they could do when provoked. The collapse of the Empire's arrogance was complete. Their pride lay in ruins, their power shattered, their names stained forever by their greatest mistake. And Earth, silent, patient, merciless, remained untouched. Silence fell over the battlefield. Where once thousands of Imperial warships had burned with pride, now only wreckage drifted through the void. The Sol system, once thought to be vulnerable, was now surrounded by the corpses of the Empire's arrogance. Broken hulls floated like ghosts, their banners torn, their voices gone. The survivors, only a handful, fled with engines sparking, dragging shame across the stars. But humanity did not chase them. The humans let them run. They wanted survivors. Survivors carried stories, and stories carried fear. Across the galaxy, those stories spread faster than light. Merchants whispered them in marketplaces. Soldiers repeated them in barracks. Politicians trembled as they listened to the shattered accounts of the survivors. They spoke of dark human ships that moved like predators of weapons no one had ever seen, of commanders whose voices were cold as stone. They spoke of a people who fought without hesitation, without mercy, and without fear. The warnings had been true. The whispers had been true. Earth was not weak. Earth was not primitive. Earth was the storm hiding in silence. In the Emperor's palace, the survivors knelt in shame before the throne. The court, once filled with laughter, was silent now. The Emperor's face, once proud and arrogant, was pale with rage. He wanted to deny what he heard, to call it lies, but the evidence was undeniable. The fleet was gone. His armies were gone. The greatest force he had ever sent was now nothing more than wreckage orbiting Earth. "You warned us," one broken officer muttered, bowing his head. "We did not listen. We thought them weak, we thought them small. But they are neither. They are something else." The Emperor said nothing. His silence was heavier than words. He could not show fear before his court. Yet inside he understood the truth. His empire had been scarred, and the scar would never heal. Beyond the empire, in the hidden halls of alien powers, the reaction was different. The old races, the ones who had whispered warnings for centuries, nodded in grim silence. They had seen this before long ago. They knew what humans truly were. Now the rest of the galaxy finally understood as well. On neutral worlds, leaders debated in secret. Should they fear humanity? Should they ally with them? Should they prepare for war or for peace? Every question ended the same way. No one dared to provoke Earth again. Meanwhile, on Earth itself, humanity remained calm. There were no celebrations, no parades, no cheering. The people of Earth did not fight for glory. They had fought because they had to, because their world demanded survival. Above all else, they returned to their cities, to their families, and to their quiet preparations for whatever came next. To them, this battle was not a triumph. It was a warning, and it was not for them, it was for the galaxy. The lesson of Earth was clear. Never mistake silence for weakness, never mistake patience for fear, and never ever mistake humanity for prey. For weeks the wreckage remained in the Sol system, a graveyard of arrogance. Passing ships saw it and turned away in fear. The Empire, once untouchable, had been humbled. Its citizens whispered of shame, its enemies whispered of opportunity, and its allies whispered of betrayal. But above all, the galaxy whispered one truth: humanity was the apex predator. From that day forward, no one laughed at the warnings. No one dismissed the whispers. And when diplomats from other worlds spoke of Earth, they spoke with respect and fear, because the Empire had thought they knew better. They had thought Earth was nothing, and now the galaxy knew the truth. Earth was everything they feared.